I've got a lot of important research and analysis to share with you today. This is quite important. This is going to be a bit more macro in nature, but it's the macro that forms the foundation of the investing environment that we're in. While a lot of investors lately have been focusing on the latest regulation on the Chinese internet sector, like the Ant breakup, or the gaming ban, or even the latest Evergrande distress, or the Soho situation, I'm honestly going to say that these developments in the short term are now secondary to a bigger elephant in the room. The key development that may change the way I think about US-China equities going forward in the short term is the handling of Taiwan. With the S&P at an expensive forward PE ratio of 23 and Chinese internet stocks sentiment still very sour, there is a lot of air underneath the US index and Chinese stocks if something goes wrong politically. Before I continue, I want to make it very clear that I want to see healthy and positive cooperation among the US and China, and also for Taiwan. Any improvement in the relationship is likely to sustain high S&P valuations and cause dip buyers to quickly return to Chinese equities as well. If you're invested in US or Chinese equities, make sure to hit that like button now so that more people can see my video to understand what is the underlying shadow risk in the market and why peace between all parties involved is more important than ever. I took on margin 2 weeks ago, as I talked about in a previous video, as I saw institutional interest returning to Chinese equities. A bounce happened, I took some profits off the table, and now I'm a bit more cautious about the political situation, but I'm still optimistic. If you're looking to understand how to navigate this current market environment, subscribe to follow my research and where I believe US and Chinese markets are possibly going next, based on fundamental, technical, and also political analysis. In today's video, I'm going to help you understand why I believe the Taiwan situation is one of the most important developments to follow. I'm sure you would agree with me that if a Black Swan event were to happen, no level of fundamental or technical analysis would provide any clarity as to what's coming next. Understanding the dynamics with Taiwan, though, could help you potentially navigate a Black Swan. So let's dive deep. On Thursday, September 9th, President Biden and President Xi had their first phone call in 7 months. On the surface, on the same day this news came out, it appeared that the call mostly talked about a range of things relating to strategic cooperation with China on topics where the two countries' interests converge and diverge. However, this call was only 90 minutes long, and that means that there wasn't really enough time to talk about multiple issues. And given that in the days leading up to this call, there was increased US and Chinese military presence in Taiwan, I believe that the real purpose of this call was to discuss how to de-escalate the situation and form an agreement. On the call, President Biden noted that he had no intentions to change the One China policy, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is the concept that there is only one sovereign state under the name of China. However, a side issue has been emerging, and I am now closely following a new development that has subtly made its way into parts of Chinese media outlets Global Times and Xinhua. The issue that I'm following is that according to the Global Times, Taiwan wishes to change its official name from Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office to Taiwan Representative Office, where it's represented in the United States. This development is the real situation that we must now follow because it represents a potential escalation of conflict between the US and China. And we can see in the last 2 weeks, increased Chinese regulation has had a shallower impact on Chinese internet equities price action. If we look at the latest gaming ban, the latest Ant company breakup, we can see that the BAT companies, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, are starting to become less sensitive to the news. It's now taking very material bearish news to send Alibaba or Tencent down 1 or 2%. Now this is because the intrinsic value of Alibaba and Tencent along with Meituan and other leading tech companies, merits a valuation that is much higher than it is today. Of course, that assumes that the business model doesn't change. Institutional investors are increasingly hesitant to sell Chinese equities at this price juncture, which is also why I mentioned in a previous video that I believe that longer-term bears in China are likely to abandon their positions once prices recover. That said, although valuation and intrinsic value is now starting to play itself out with short-term market pricing, I believe that if Taiwan's name is changed to Taiwan Representative Office, there could be additional substantial volatility in US-China markets. China would not be happy with the name change in diplomatic offices, and this is likely to create additional uncertainty within the global investment community. Based on what I've read from China's publications in Global Times, China would likely respond to the situation if Taiwan's name change went through. Now, I'm going to leave it up to your imagination what responding to the situation means. If you believe this, then please take note. And if you don't believe this, then definitely continue listening. The US is highly wary of angering China, but at the same time wants to preserve negotiation chips for leverage. While on the call with President Xi, President Biden noted that he supported the One China policy, but there are also media reports that some politicians support the name change from TECRO, which is what it is now, to Taiwan Representative Office. According to a Financial Times article, Indo-Asia coordinator Kurt Campbell is reportedly supportive of the name change. Now, in order for the name change to be official, President Biden would need to sign an executive order. And I believe that the sudden midday sell-off on Friday, September 10th was possibly due to large investors getting anxious about the true contents of the call on Thursday, September 9th. Now, according to Chinese news Global Times, it was later revealed, and this is super critical, that US and Taiwan national security officials met in Maryland on Friday, which is just 1 hour from Washington, D.C. This news was revealed after the call between Biden and Xi, and I believe the midday sell-off on Friday was potentially due to institutional investors knowing more about this situation. Now, equities somewhat recovered on Monday, September 13th because there was no further escalation over the weekend. But because there wasn't any clarification on this issue, there was pressure on US and Chinese markets on Tuesday, September 14th. Now, even Chinese equities such as Alibaba experienced mild losses despite the new crackdown on Ant Financial. That makes me believe and makes me feel that it's not regulation that's pressuring the market right now. Now, from an investing perspective, I believe that if Biden approves the name change for Taiwan, it's very likely that US-China relations continue to deteriorate. And that may cause either or both countries to walk back on their commitments on the Phase 1 trade deals along with other strategic cooperation initiatives. In addition, it's reported that China may impose economic sanctions over Taiwan, which could add to the semiconductor chip shortage given that world leader TSM is a Taiwanese company. This could potentially be a reason why that the SOX chip index, along with chip leaders, Applied Materials, and Lam Research have shown relative recent strength despite NASDAQ softness because due to the chip shortage. If the name change does happen though, I am personally going to take off margin and sell half my positions until there's clarity because I'm not in a position to understand how world leaders will react going forward. And by the time they do, as a retail investor, it might be too late for me to respond. So the reason that I'm sharing with you my thought process is that I care about you as my friend on YouTube. And you're watching my research, and I've been blessed by a lot of wonderful, kind comments, and I simply want to help you avoid tremendous volatility. That said, even though I've researched this situation closely, I could be wrong, and it could end up being a non-event. But my professional background as a researcher tells me that this is a very serious issue, and it is now one of the top risks that I'm tracking. There is a reason that the VIX is close to 20, even though on the surface, US stocks are near its records. The VIX is actually above its 20-day moving average, while the S&P seems to have a technical pattern of a rolling top. The technology sector, which is interconnected with China and the rest of the world, has been soft in the past week. Now, in order to help you track the situation more closely on your own time, I want to share with you where you can find the news sources so that you can come to your own conclusions, and the links are also in the description below for your convenience. In terms of media, I'm personally closely following global news from 4 different perspectives: US media, Chinese media, Taiwanese media, and rest of the world media. Now, in addition, it's important to know who is who in the context so that you can weigh the importance of statements made by people. I'm following statements made at the leadership level, at the president level. President Biden representing the US, President Xi representing China, and Tsai Ing-wen representing the leader of Democratic Progressive Party in Taiwan. I'm also following statements from military leaders, national security advisors, and Asia Pacific advisors as well, specifically US Indo-Pacific Coordinator Kurt Campbell, and also US State Department Principal Deputy Spokesperson Jelena Portner, just as a few names to list. Now, in order for me to remain as objective as possible as an investor, I made sure to read all 4 perspectives so that I am fully informed and know how to react and interpret to the news. I'm going to start with the Chinese narrative because I have a feeling that if the name change is permitted, it would not be good news for global investors. I reviewed 2 sources that I believe represent the voice of the Chinese government. One was Global Times and the other was Xinhua. From a piece written by Global Times on this situation, it seems that if the name change goes through, it would ultimately not be helpful at all in advancing the economic interests of both parties. I would say that this article, I've linked in the description below, is worth reading if you want to understand the perspective from mainland China. And it doesn't take long to realize that this issue is very real after you read the Taiwanese perspective on the Taipei Times. The first sentence of the article reads that Taiwanese Premier Su Sang-chang said changing TECRO's name to include Taiwan would make the representative office more recognizable and make Taiwan more visible. The article confirmed the US State Department neither denied nor confirmed the Financial Times report, which indicated US support, and instead reiterated that relationships were rock solid. Now, from the US perspective, various media sources such as the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and also US News and Reports continue to report that the US wants to avoid conflict with China and continue strategic cooperation while maintaining that their relationship with Taiwan is rock solid. When we think about the broader impact that the name change for Taiwan could have on US-China relations, I believe that this will definitely throw cold water on a relationship that is trying to get back on its feet. And I believe the increased tensions could further weigh down sentiment on investors more than other developments. Now, I want to make it super clear that as an equity researcher and investor, I want to see global harmony and continued strategic cooperation between the US and China. I believe that if this balance is tilted in one way or another, both US and Chinese equities could pay a very heavy price. For this reason, I'm closely monitoring this situation and would encourage my viewers to sidestep any political ideology and understand that this development is likely to cause incredible market volatility. Any continued agreement between the US and China on this issue is likely to send the S&P and the Shanghai Composite even higher than it is today. Alibaba, Tencent, and other Chinese tech companies I've covered on my channel are also highly likely to benefit from mutual cooperation. I hope that the US and China can come to an agreement that maintains their relationship while keeping Taiwan safe. Now, in terms of scenario analysis, based on what the outcome might look like, here is what I think. If the name is left unchanged for TECRO, then I believe that we see a bounce for the S&P immediately. back to 4,500 and beyond because it takes off political tension. In addition, I do believe specifically that US companies with larger revenues from China will likely see a short-term boost. I believe that the biggest beneficiaries will also be Chinese internet companies, as there will be one less political worry to factor in their valuation framework. Now, if the name is changed, I believe this development could easily send the S&P below 4,400 in a couple trading sessions, or even 4,300 support in a couple trading sessions, as there are a substantial number of companies that rely on China. And given that the equity risk premium in these companies depend on continued growth in China, it's likely that investors start discounting their future growth prospects. Chinese tech stocks could also see another leg down because this catalyst is definitely more powerful than another Chinese regulation on just another sector. I don't think that the Ant breakup or the Evergrande situation or the Soho situation can bring the Chinese bat companies, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, much lower. But I do think that any escalation with Taiwan can. Now, if there's no further news on the name change, I expect cash to remain in the safer areas in the market, and the S&P might be range-bound for a while Chinese tech stocks also see continued moderate pressure. I really don't think that the S&P revisits the highs until it's clear that Biden has confirmed that the name change doesn't go through to take off political worries. Now, all of this, of course, is my opinion. And as a CFA charter holder, it's incredibly important to note that it's very challenging to forecast political situations. Now, in the future, I definitely want to talk about more casual topics related to investing. This video was particularly serious and timely, but I hope that I can share more lighthearted analysis with you in the future. My channel is definitely about investing and research, but in the future, I may incorporate other interesting content on my channel. If you want to connect with me on a social level, definitely feel free to connect with me on Instagram. Now, given that my channel doesn't have a Discord server like many other investment channels here on YouTube, I'm pretty active in the comment section below. So treat the comment section like our community forum, and I'll definitely engage with you, but please just make sure that your comment is respectful. Please let me know your thoughts about this situation in the comments below, and also any other analysis that you want to share or shed some light on. Once again, I'm building an email list later this year and early next. I want to send some informative emails to this list every once in a while when I have time as a high value, low frequency read. If interested, link is in the description below. And as always, stay safe, and hopefully by the next time I see you, we have further clarity on this development. And lastly, here's my tactical summary sheet here for you to take a look. I'll see you next time.